The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
You're listening to UCW Radio. In your face.
Welcome to another segment of the UCW Radio Show, and this is your host, Lou, aka Falcon Coparis, and I want to thank all of our listeners for their continued support by listening to the show. We have some great guests that are continuing to come on, and we're just going to bring you the best of the best as we move forward, because we're increasing our syndication. We're bringing, as I said, great guests on the show. So keep listening, and the UCW Radio Show, we're going to strive to be better and better as time goes on. And I have to put a word out there for sponsors, advertisers, marketers that want to tie into the UCW Radio Show. Go to ucwmagazine.com. Definitely do so, and that way, some sort of partnership could develop. And in just a little while, we're going to have, I'm going to say, it's an ultra special guest. He is an innovator. He is a visionary. He is, I guess, he can be the poster boy for the American dream, coming from nothing, building an empire, and continuing to help not only himself or his personal wants and needs, but actually to help the country through innovation. And he is a humble guy, and his story is amazing, and I'm honored to have him on the show today so that our listeners, you guys, can actually really get a glimpse into his life and understand that the American dream is out there, and if you want it, all you need to do is go get it. I'm not going to run through all the stuff that he's done, but he is an incredible individual. But we will get to him in a second. Before we bring him on the line, I need to let our listeners know that if you want to, if you have a question or a comment and you want to pose it, all you need to do is give us a jingle at 323-952-4369. Leave us a message, or if we're live, then you'll be live. Just make the questions or comments interesting. If you want to know who we're going to have on the show, what guests on what particular day, all you need to do is go to ucwmagazine.com and find out. We try to put the schedule up there to make it easier for our listeners to follow what we're doing and who is coming on, because every guest we have on has an amazing story, and again, we're just honored to be able to provide the platform to tell these stories. And again, I have to say it again about the sponsorship. Sponsors can that want to tie into the UCW Radio Show, just go to ucwmagazine.com, contact us, and let's talk about it. If you're on Twitter, then you can shoot me out some questions, comments. Again, just as making a phone call, you can tweet me directly. My Twitter name is Louis Velazquez. That's LouisVelazquez. Follow me and tweet away. Now, without further ado, I want to patch in a man that, as I said earlier, he's a visionary. He is the epitome of the American dream. And if anyone out there has a dream that they want to go reach for something, listen to what he's going to have to say, because during this interview, I am giving him the opportunity to tell his story for our listeners, just for the benefit of them knowing his journey. And that's what this show is all about. So without further ado, here is the founder of DiMora Motorcar, Alfred DiMora. Alfred, it's great to have you on the UCW Radio Show. Thanks for taking time, especially on a Saturday morning, for us.
You're welcome. It's good to be on the show.
That's great to hear. We always appreciate, and I say this all the time, we always appreciate the time our guests put aside, because your time is valuable, and I just wanted to let that out. Now, Alfred, you're a man on a mission. And there's no other way for me to put it. You are a man on a mission. You're a visionary for all intents and purposes. I just want to give our listeners an overview of broad strokes on your life. You've accomplished so many things, and I really don't have enough time in my life to go over it because I'd have to be about 80 before I can get through everything. I can't do that. But you were inducted into the Knights of Malta in 2001, which I find incredible. You've been involved in everything from chemical recycling and public relations management to software development and even developing infomercials. And, of course, the automotive industry. In short, your resume is very long, and we're not going to go through everything. I'm not anyway. You can talk about it because I just don't have enough breath. I didn't do enough cardio to go through that. But I just find that your story impressive. And it is impressive. Now, you're working on a new project, the development of a handmade automobile. I saw the pictures. I read about it. All I can say is, wow. Yeah, incredible. But before we get into your new project, I want to get into the core of the show. And that's you and your journey. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to start at the beginning. You grew up in Rochester, right? New York?
Yeah, Rochester, New York, upstate. Yep.
Okay, great. Now, as being a kid from Rochester, you were always into cars.
I was, upstate New York, as you know, in the wintertime, or if you don't know, it gets really cold, and so
I know.
9 months of the year, and so a lot of us worked on cars. I mean, if you had a hobby, that was one of them, and so. I just loved cars since I was a young kid, and everyone around me was working on cars, so it's kind of a natural fit,
But your fascination was so deep that you made it a point, and to rebuild a burnt out 39 Buick.
Yeah, I always had that burning desire that I wanted to do something that when someone told me I couldn't do it, it always seemed to be challenging to me.
Right.
And I was glad that energy was pushed in the right direction. And the 39 Buick was kind of the start where it was burnt out in the garage, and pretty much I bought it, I think, for $20 because they were just going to junk it. And I said I'd love to restore this thing, and took it and brought it over to a hangout house, you might call it, of some people. And Paul at that time knew an awful lot about cars, and I don't know, I guess I was 14 or 13, somewhere in there, and we started to restore that car. And Paul said the only way you're going to learn is do it. And so that's how it began there with that particular car.
But what's interesting about that story, and this is a point that I want to stress, is that you did all this and you didn't even know how to drive.
No, I wasn't driving at the time. You're right. Just had an infatuation about cars, like everyone. As a young boy, I'd see a Ferrari or something go by or read it in a magazine and said, "Wow, that's something," So as that fascination became more and more, you get more and more indulged into it. So, yeah, you're right. I wasn't driving at the time.
Yeah,
didn't think about it at the time, though. I just had a mindset. This is what I was going to do.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. To be that into it, and not for the purpose of driving the car, but just to do it and see the end result. That's fantastic. Now, just jumping forward, in the mid-70s, you made the move from Rochester, New York, and you wound up in California, and you went there to work for the Clinet Coachworks, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I was like the sixth employee there, and very early on, the car was very, very crude that Alon had put together, and we made that thing into a car that, I think at the time, none of us knew that it would grow into what it was. But when I was there, I wanted to build something extremely unique, different, and a very high caliber of quality also.
But how did you get that? How did you go from Rochester to go to California? What brought you to go to Clinet?
Well, Clinet was actually just by chance. When I was in Rochester, I worked in a program, like a co-op program, where I became a machinist, and I even worked in the evenings at a place called Heinz and Phillips, which I don't even know if it's still there today. It's so many years ago, but I became a machinist, and then I went to welding school. So when I was doing the Buick and whatnot, you find that you needed to make a part, or you couldn't find a part, so you had to make it. And the only way that you would make it is I couldn't rely on someone else. I had to rely on myself. And so I was too poor at that time to send it out, so I figured I needed to make it myself. So I kind of self-taught myself, and then went to a co-op program, which really taught me an awful lot about being a machinist and how to weld.
So you became a welder.
Well, machinist and a welder. When you get into that trade, anybody that's in that trade today, if they're machining, they're pretty much welding too. I mean, it's not just one thing anymore. It's a combination of things.
Right. I mean, that's great. What I'm trying to do for our listeners to establish, so actually not establish, for them to understand that you didn't just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to make cars. This was something that you had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations to get to where you are today. So we're kind of like going through the chronology of your life, because I think it's an amazing story. And you having to go and become a machinist and a welder and so on and so forth, you started from the ground up. Nothing was handed to you.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're building any car or any project. If you don't know the project better yourself, or can't do it, then how do you expect someone else to do it for you? So that was kind of my theory, and not knowing it at the time, obviously, you did things right because you wanted them done right. So, as meticulous as I was, which I drove a lot of people crazy, it just turned out to have a nice product. Obviously, nice product, the end result was people wanted it.
Right. I mean, if more corporations around had that thought process of putting someone in charge that really knew the business better than anyone there, then we would have a whole lot less companies going under.
Yeah, I kind of laugh at the theory when they say, hey, I put people better than me around me, and I'm like, why would you do that? I mean, you're letting someone else rely on your own business, and it's in their hands, and you don't know if they're better than you. I mean, you're supposed to be the one that knows it all. So I don't get that theory when people tell me that, but I guess it works for some.
I mean, to each his own. That's the way I look at things. But now, what you did at Clinet just shows your drive and passion. What impressed me more is that you went on not only to take control of Clinet, but you at the same time you went out and you created another motor car company, the Scepter.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
And you won very prestigious awards for all the work with both car companies. And can you tell us what drove you to take control of Clinet and launch the Scepter at the same time? Because that's a lot.
It was. I always thought the management of Clinet at the time that I was in was headed down the wrong path, and it kind of proved itself that it went that way because it filed itself into a chapter proceedings, and the opportunity was there, and a lot of people knew me and believed in me and my theories, and so I got some backing for the Clinet and kind of took off with it, and it kind of proved itself. The Scepter, on the other hand, was the Clinet was an elegant, and if you've seen both pictures, and I know you have, but listeners, but they're both two different cars completely, but they're based off of the same theory on the same running gears and whatnot. And what I was trying to show there was there's this sports luxury side like a Jaguar would be versus a Rolls Royce, and the Clinet kind of gave you that Rolls Royce luxury feel, lamb's wool carpeting and burl wood and crystal ashtrays and all the real great features that you would find in any fantastic car. Where the Scepter was more of a sporty car, I wanted to get behind the car and feel like it was a sports car, but you had a luxury car.
Okay.
And it clearly became, its own entity on its own, the Scepter did. And a lot of people say, hey, they like the Scepter better than the Clenet, and vice versa. So it caught both markets, which we were trying to capture, and we did. We managed to do that at the auto show in 1978. We won Best Car Show, first time showing the Scepter, which I thought was a fantastic award.
Yeah, well, that is fantastic, and maybe it just shows all the work you put into it. Was recognized by your peers.
It was. In those early days when I was doing that, we didn't have what we have today, the internet and all that neat stuff. I had a Polaroid, and I would take a picture of a Polaroid, and what you'll see on my internet if you go there under Scepter, well, these pictures are kind of poor quality because they're a Polaroid, and I physically took pictures of the car as it was proceeding along, and I would take it to different dealers and different people and show them virtually almost week by week below on how the car was coming.
Right.
And then, of course, invited them to come to the show. And obviously, from a picture of 4 wheels to the end result of the show, it showed itself,
When you start with starting something from the ground up like that, it's not like you had the at that point. It's not like you had the bankroll of a Ford or a General Motors at that time, where you had to actually hustle, take your Polaroid, run out, and go meet people. Kind of like Colonel Sanders with Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, there's no question. A lot of people say, "Man, you're a lucky guy," and I say, "Yeah, it's a 4-letter word. It's called work."
There you go. I like that. But it's so true.
People don't realize it, but it was 16-hour days, and even to this day, today, I mean, either you have it or you don't. You're prepared and you're dedicated to what you're doing, and obviously it's my passion, so it doesn't feel like work. So when I'm working 16-hour days, it doesn't feel like I work 16-hour days.
Right, but you still have to put the time in, because something's just not going to, develop out of nothing. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's no free lunch out there, and there's no question. There's an awful lot of work that goes into this stuff, and one of the reasons I put up on my website and showing how a car is built, and I can only give a flavor of it to young people and older, just in all walks of life. It kind of gives you a flavor of what it really takes to build a car today.
Well, you have to go through a lot of steps from doing things on a small scale, and you have to go through everything from the window to the handle to the motor to this to that. Yeah, I don't envy you on that. But
yeah, I mean, down to the screw. Does the screw head fit in the right place? And a lot of people don't think about it. When you drive a car, you get in, you turn it on, and you drive it away. Well, that's great, but there is about 9,000 pieces that make all that go together.
Yeah, and there's a lot involved there, because, as you said, especially if you're doing something like you're doing, that luxury type of model, and you're putting more stuff in there. So there's a lot of thought, and there's a lot of work. There's a lot of time involved in the production of each car.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like, okay, we're going to go on the assembly line and let's just go bang this out and churn them and burn them type of thing. That's not what you're about.
No, that's not what DiMora Motor Car's been, or myself, for all these years. We've always tried to go on cutting edge, and obviously we were on the higher end of cutting edge, but what ends up happening is that, and I look at it as a business sense, if I'm selling a $2 million car, and a lot of people say to me, well, who's going to buy a $2 million car? And to tell you the truth, there's, I forgot the number of billionaires just around the world today. We have a mailing list of them, but it's extremely strong, and especially multi-millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the thousands, which people don't realize. But even a guy that's buying a $2 million car, a lot of people say, well, that's just for ego and whatnot. And I say, these people are actually really helping me. And because when they purchase a $2 million car, there's profit in these cars, and I can take that profit, turn around, put it into more exploring for new technologies, and just trying to get stuff out there, which ends up trickling down to the person that's driving their normal car. To kind of give you an example, the Natalia has a heated windshield wiper. And that's taken a lot to go through with our technology partners and whatnot. But eventually, that heated windshield wiper, especially coming from Rochester, New York, would make a lot of sense to a lot of people in cold weather.
No doubt.
And it's on a $2 million car, but we spent the money getting it there to R&D it, which people don't realize how much money it costs to do that. So, in a sense, these people that are buying my $2 million car allow me to do a lot more R&D. As everyone knows, I own the company 100%, so I don't have any outside investors whatsoever. So it is all done on my own dime. So in a way, they're helping me, and obviously they're car lovers and they want to have the best out there. So.
But you're absolutely right. I like the fact that you made that point, because what you're doing on a luxury automobile with all the little things that people, they think about, they say, wow, I wish I didn't have to scrape this ice off the windshield, and I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish I didn't have to do that. You're creating this stuff where at some point in time, one of the mass automakers may take that idea, go, and if they have the opportunity and the licensing rights, everything else, and they would go and create it for their automobiles. And again, as you said, it goes down to the average Joe that has a Nissan or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it does trickle down. That trickle down effect does happen. And we're the other thing is that we're kind of pioneers out there. Where can a computer go in a car? And when I started out 3.5 years ago with the project, I was convincing car companies that the future is computers, because, as you know, I was involved in computers, and I seen the future of cars and computers coming together so well that I pushed very, very hard, and now you're starting to see stuff that I had talked about 3.5 years ago and wrote about. Car companies are catching on, and you know what? I'm glad for that, because that's what we're trying to do.
Right,
we're trying to make and encourage other people to see what we're seeing or what we believe.
But what makes you different, Alfred, than General Motors or Ford, beyond your business model, is you, as you said, you own your company. You are the guy. You know what you're doing there. Where you have General Motors, Ford, they did something smart. I like the way they brought in a reorganization kingpin to help restructure the company so they wouldn't go out of business. But you have companies out there in the automotive world that just put people at the head of the table for no other reason, but they don't know anything about the auto business. So that kind of confuses me.
What confuses me in the automobile industry is that you have outside people outside the automotive industry that have come in, there's people from Home Depot that have come in and different aspects, and you look at that and you say, now how is a guy that understand? And I understand that you can build widgets and all that. If you're a businessman, you're a businessman. But I have to tell you, cars is different. You have 9,000 pieces that have to go down. You have the dealers, you have the network, and then you have the consumer that's buying the car. And so, how do you get someone from outside the industry and say that they're passionate? In other words, Lee Iacocca was passionate to what he did, and he proved his point with Chrysler back when. Mm-hmm. He was so passionate about it. He understood cars. Mm-hmm. He developed the cars that people wanted, and the bottom line came. He never worried about the shareholders, not once, because he knew that the end result would be is that the shareholders would be happy because they're selling cars. In today's environment, my feeling is, and of course this is strictly my opinion, is we're worried too much about the bottom line to shareholders instead of being passionate about the car. And if you build yourself a car that's so good looking and performance and separates you from the other cars in quality and everything else, then the bottom line always comes.
Right.
I mean, that's always been my experience. So I think the philosophy there just kind of needs to change a little bit. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that. But now you have some government influence to it, and whenever that happens, then anytime that you have somebody guiding you other than what your heart's telling you where it should go, then hey, it becomes a problem. I'm lucky in the fact that I don't have any board of directors. I don't have anybody. And if I make a mistake, it's my mistake. But at the same time, I ask people for help.
Right.
And by doing that, when you go to my website, it says, tell me if you know something or if I'm doing something wrong. If you don't like it, I'm interested to hear about it, or if you do like it.
Yeah.
Because I would love to build cars that people love, not just, obviously for my own taste.
Right. Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
of course. Everyone has their own view of the perfect automobile for them, and even though you're building luxury automobiles, getting input, and that's smart. Forget about cars for a second. That's smart as a businessman to connect with the people, because these are the people that eventually are going to buy.
Buying your cars. I can give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about, which is the Chrysler 300 came out years ago, as we all know. And when that car came out, the writers wrote about this car saying, I forgot what the quote was, ugly duckling or Bruce Scoots. They put some connotation to that car. Mm-hmm. And as if you can imagine, all the Chrysler dealers at that time thinking to myself, God, we just ordered 200 and 300 of these things. We don't even know what they look like. We've got a little flavor of it, but, until they actually hit the lot, we don't know what we just bought. Mm-hmm. Now I've got, all the press beating down the car. What is the consumer thinking, especially the dealer that's really out there for profit? The car hits the lots, and all of a sudden, Bentley comes out with a car, and this car has a flavor of a Bentley, and people look at it saying, I'm going to buy myself a $30,000, $40,000 Bentley. I love this car. And it just kind of made the whole industry look stupid. The writers, mm-hmm. The everybody along the way. And if they just ask the consumer, do you like this? Why hide the cars today? Mm-hmm. Why not ask your customers what they want? You see all these polka dotted cars and the spy thing and all that. All that sort of makes me laugh, And the only reason for that is that car companies are copying each other almost to the T. Yep. But just look when you drive down the street of the freeway. I don't know. I can't tell one car from another anymore.
Look at the Mercedes. You have a Mercedes, or what did I see? A Maserati. I love the car way back when. I owned one, so I love the car. Now, I see the Maserati. Yeah, you see the name, you're like, wow, Maserati. I look at the car, I'm like, well, it kind of looks like a Nissan type of thing, and then you look at other cars like the Mercedes, they change the body style of the car. So now it looks like everything else out there. So it becomes, and you're right, it becomes who's following who and why.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be. You know what? I feel as though I'll put it all out there and be the leader. Mm-hmm. And if someone copies me, my wife always says to me, God, they're doing self-parking now, and that was going to be in your car. And I said, isn't that great? Yeah. Crash and all this other stuff. And I'm saying, this is fantastic. And I said, you know what? If I'm the most knocked off person as far as taking technology from me, I'm the happiest guy in the world, because ultimately the Natalia that I'm building has it all under the kitchen sink, and it costs X amount of dollars. And obviously the other car companies can't do that right. Because of their budgetary restrictions. But it's nice to see all this stuff. It's nice to see computers and GPS mm-hmm. and all that to help and guide people.
Well, they say, and this is what they say, that the ultimate compliment is someone copying you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what you got, and just in case our listeners are not convinced of you being a visionary, which I know you are, you created and marketed the first 50/50 antifreeze.
That's right.
Yeah, look, our listeners need to understand, this is stuff that you find in every gas station, every Arnett Strauss, Pep Boys across the country. What lit up in you that drove you to make that happen?
Well, it's interesting. When you look at cars today, and I was looking at the inhibitor packages, which make up the antifreeze, and different inhibitor packages cost more money, and which would give you more length, 100,000-mile warranties versus 20,000-mile warranty on the antifreeze. So I thought, well, why not do 50/50 antifreeze and put the DI water in and have it ready to use? Not only is it easy for any person, including my wife, which knows nothing about cars, and there's a lot of people out there just know nothing about cars. And what they do is they take a hose and they put it in your car. You remember the day you just go up to the hose and you put it in there. What they didn't understand at that time was that they're introducing salts to the car, and it wasn't the oil killing the car, it was the antifreeze, because the salt would eat away. And you remember the day where you used to see the white crust on your radiator on the hose? Well, that's the salt that's pouring through from the hard waters.
Wow.
So that's, salt that was coming through. So on the bottle, when you read any of the antifreeze bottles, it said that you have to mix it with DI water, and I'll bet you that 99% of them never did. And then plus you had to get a certain mixture. A lot of people have a little misunderstanding of antifreeze, which is so critical. I think, in my opinion, antifreeze is more critical than the oil in the car.
Right.
Simply because it eats all the rubber away inside the radiator, inside the water pumps and any seals, and especially when we're talking about big equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can just take it, pour it in, and by the way, we added a bittering agent to it and color. Our antifreeze was a fluorescent color, which animals don't like, and then we added a bittering agent in it for the environmentalists, so the animals wouldn't drink that.
Mm-hmm.
They would shy away from it, not die from the antifreeze.
Oh.
But to me, it only made sense if you put yourself a better inhibitor package, did a 50-50 antifreeze, and just pour it in ready to use. Well, then anybody would use it, and guess what? It was half the price.
Yeah.
When I started this, people told me there's no way, Al, that people are going to spend 50 cents or spend the money on 50% water in a jug. You're just not going to tote around water in a jug, and people are going to buy it. I said, water's become the hottest commodity around, and obviously today, my theory was right.
Oh, yeah.
About the water, too. I mean, water's becoming more valuable than oil, but in a car, it only made sense. And it struck me when people said to me, on the antifreeze side of things, the other products out there were selling for $8 and $9, and I was selling for $3.99.
Mm-hmm.
So, we went to a grocery department store and said, hey, we'd like to get an end cap and put out there and compete against one of your best brands, and I'll pay for it just to show you. And we outsold, I think at that time, about 6-1,
mm-hmm.
Because it was easy to pour, it was ready to use, it was DI water, and it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It was friendly to the environment for the animals and whatnot. So that really did take off around the world, in fact. And then I came up with a second product for heavy trucks and heavy equipment. A lot of people aren't aware of. When a truck driver would break down, another truck would have to pick him up, haul him into the garage. They have these pre-filters that have to pre-charge up the antifreeze. And this is hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I said, why don't we come up with an antifreeze that's 50-50 that's pre-charged? Why do I have to haul a truck in and spend thousands and thousands of dollars when a truck driver can carry six-pack in their back, load it up, and they can fix it on the road themselves and be down the road, especially for an independent.
Right.
And that took off very well. In fact, it ended up in the mining industry. It ended up in the I had some resistance, obviously with the big motors, because they were saying, well, God, you're not only doing 50-50, you're doing recycled antifreeze. And God bless America. I'm trying to help there, too. So,
yeah.
I mean, I was recycling, 12 years ago? Became the largest recycling outfit around for antifreeze. So, we wanted to reuse that stuff and put it out there. And the inhibitor packages are very interesting because you can have an inhibitor package that will go 20,000 miles or 100,000 miles. And obviously, General Motors and other people came in to play that listened to some of the stuff that I said at some of these seminars that I was at and speaking at. That I see in the future. Why not have antifreeze that lasts 100,000 miles?
Mm-hmm.
And like everything else should.
Right. I mean, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Well, that's sort of the antifreeze story, and that, you know, you asked me how I came up with it, and I just seen a real need for it and a desire, and obviously it's still out there today, which and I know it will be around as long as there's engines around.
Well, I mean, I'll pat you on the back for that because I have that in my car. And I just put it in there about a week ago. I went to the store, and it's funny because I went to the store and I said, well, I need antifreeze, and I see all this antifreeze. I see this thing 50/50. So there we go. That's what I'm using. And so that's interesting.
Well, you know, one of the things is on the mixture of antifreeze, and I was about to say that a lot of people don't understand if you put too much antifreeze in. A lot of people just go, oh, I'll put more antifreeze in. Well, in very cold weather, especially in the Alaskan one, I mean, antifreeze will slush up. You have to have a transfer agent through there, which is the water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was so critical to balance it out. If you have too much antifreeze, it will slush up. If you have too little, it'll overheat. So you had to have the perfect mixture, and that's where the 50/50 came in.
But it's like common sense if you think about it.
Yeah, and at the time we branded it preferred coolant because I felt that was preferred. It was 50/50, ready to use, nice little star. It was a no-brainer, and anybody could buy it and pour it in their car. Feel confident that they did it exactly the way they needed to do it.
Well, it's interesting how you did that, and that's used all over the world, as you said, all over the world. And you go to any major store, you see this. It's kind of like with the light bulb. Everyone uses it. It was something. It was an innovation that was developed, and it became there for mass consumption, just like the 50/50 antifreeze. I find that story amazing. Now we're gonna, as we're going through this, is just one amazing chapter in your life after another, and that's why I'm glad to have you on the show. So you went from developing the 50/50 antifreeze. Now you went on to found Starbridge Systems, which is a computing technology company. Now I'm not going to go and tell the story on this. This is something you need to tell us because I found this. I was floored when I read this. So tell us about Starbridge and what you did with them.
Well, Starbridge actually was a very interesting company. The technologies of FPGAs were out there, fill programmable gate arrays, and even to this day, they still don't really understand how they work. But they were a powerful tool chip set that Xilinx and Altera, some other people actually developed. And basically, the difference between an ASIC chip and a FPGA chip is that an ASIC chip is once you program this chip, it automatically is stuck or embedded into that. So if you're using only 10% of the chip, you're using 100% of the power, which doesn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. The FPGA, on the other hand, our chip was called the Penza chip, which meant thinking in Italian. But the Penza chip was you only used the energy that you wanted on demand at the time. So an analogy is if you needed to dig a hole and you needed a small hole or a large hole, you would take this little spoon and you would, start digging the hole, and then you take a shovel, and then you kind of go from there until you ended up with a backhoe. Well, wouldn't it be easier if I can just take that cookie cutter and backhoe and just make it the same size that I needed each time, only at the time that I needed it? And so that was sort of the concept of that. And what we did is we paralleled those up, and we had a lot of issues going on there for layering of boards. Because at that time only 6 to 7 boards could be layered together on top of one another before you ended up with static and you could see anything on your computer. So we ended up with a whole mass of problems that went on with it, but we set off and built out the world's smallest, fastest supercomputer that plugged into a normal 110, and there was a lot of defeats there that we accomplished with it that I think companies didn't accomplish it in over 10 years that we did in a matter of a couple years. I called it hyper-algorithm language. I coined the word called hypercomputing. I always felt as though that it was the next level of computing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the hypercomputer stepped in, and as you knew, that we did a lot of work for NASA and Cancer Institute and a whole bunch of neat projects out there that were humanitarian involved. Some of it went to weapons, which I don't know if I agree with or disagree with in this day and age, but for the most part, I think that this technology was to help mankind and move mankind forward. Also gave me a real grasp of what my next level for my next car was, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and the only way that I was going to do that was learn it 100% myself. So if someone asked me what a V is, I could tell you. If someone asked me how to put a board together, I could tell you. I can do it. So it was a real good learning curve for myself to understand what I needed to do to put it back in the cars. Because I found myself in GM, Chrysler, Ford, all the car companies, like all the engineers, computers were great, but I know how to use them at a certain level, not to integrate them.
Right.
Because we typically go in for one field and we stay in that field, and that's that, you know. So the supercomputer turned out to be a pretty amazing thing, and it's again what I called hypercomputer, hyper-rhythm language, nicknamed HAL. So it was the thinking machine that was coming to life, nicknamed HAL. That's where the Penza chip came in.
Okay.
And so the neat thing about this type of computing is that you only needed to have an interface, so we could actually have the compute power sitting anywhere at any central station or even a home for that matter. And we can disperse it out where you're just using the interface. You don't physically have to have the hardware with you. And the way the software was put together is that you can actually push into the software. And the software name, by the way, was called Viva, and that meant life in Italian.
Right.
And that's where that acronym came together, the thinking machine that came to life, nicknamed HAL, Hyper-Rhythm Language. And so I always thought, what we were building was, HAL, because if you had the hardware, you can actually connect to our hardware and it becomes one massive machine. So the more of these chips that intertwine to one another, especially with the internet, the stronger the computer became. It became one computer, and that gave you more compute power. When you had more compute power, you were able to do more computation. When you're able to do more computation, you can create really cool things with it, from automation to simulation for medical drugs and all type of things to speed up. When you can simulate something in an hour that normally would take you 5 hours, or therefore for a month, you can see what it does to the compute world.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Now, I need to ask you a question, Alfred. You didn't go to MIT or anything like that.
No, I graduated from a school called Gates Charlie High School, and in fact, they're putting me in their Hall of Fame at the end of the month. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to the kids there, but no.
Congrats on that. Congratulations on that. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I thought that was an honor too, and I get a chance to speak to the kids and tell them, they can do it. I did it. They can do it. And I didn't think of myself to be a genius by no means. Coming out of that school. So I always believe people have the power to do what they want to do if they just put their minds to it, and I'm a perfect example of it. I've met many, many people in my position that I sold cars to that were in the same exact position I was. They never went to a college, and I'm not saying college is not good. College is great, especially if you're going to be a doctor or something. You have to. But there's certain things that you just can't learn. Right. In a book that you can learn on the street. Right,
exactly, and that's that's the mold that I come from. So I totally understand, where you're coming from on that. You know what's funny, Albert? I was watching a movie with Robert Downey Jr. and I just thought about you. And he was in Iron Man. I don't know if you saw the movie or not.
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoyed that movie.
I mean, did your wife sit there and call you Tony Stark? That's what I want to know.
She did. She said, look at those cars, and then, look at all that stuff. And I said, isn't that cool? Maybe we ought to do that next.
Yeah, there you go. You are the real Tony Stark. I love it. I love that stuff. And now we're going to get into some fun stuff before we talk about the Natalia. And this is, again, you must love the Santa Monica Pier. I have to say that. You must love it.
I do love Santa Monica, and I do love the pier out there.
Okay.
There's no question about it. I actually I lived in Santa Monica for about a year and a half myself.
I love it over there. But, the reason, just for our listeners, the reason I say that, beyond you and myself loving the Santa Monica Pier, you are one of the major participants in Voyager, which is a project that you're going to build the largest Ferris wheel.
Yeah, the Ferris wheel has been very interesting and very challenging. It's not what we call a Ferris wheel, although it is a Ferris wheel. We call it an observation wheel, and the observation wheel has a lot of luxury to it. Unlike just the normal Ferris wheel, where you get on it, stand it, and go around it. This is really meant to be an experience and an enjoyable 27 minutes. You can sit down and have a drink, whether it's a soft drink or whatever you'd like to your taste, and really sit down and relax. As you've been in these restaurants on the very top, where it's just moving real slow, and you get to see the scenic all the way around in Niagara Falls and whatnot. Yeah. And that's typically what the concept there was: is to get in there, really enjoy yourself, 27 minutes, and get a nice experience. And so it's not your typical, as you've seen in the pictures, it's not your typical Ferris wheel itself. And it's a very challenging project, I must say, especially in these days and times. But a real fun project, and you will see that come out. We're not sure exactly when, but we are definitely working on it. And I know it will get done. And when it gets done, I think everyone will really, really enjoy it and appreciate it.
Yeah, but that's not going to be the Ferris wheel that's geared towards kids. I would think that more.
Well, actually, it's geared to the first one wants to go into Las Vegas, and it's geared to all walks of life. I'm assuming during the day we're going to have more kids, but at night, you'd be surprised. From midnight to 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, the high rollers and different people that really want to enjoy the nightlife. And of course, Las Vegas never sleeps anyway. So
that's true. That is true.
And it's set up for a handicap, and so everybody, all walks of life, will be able to go on there and enjoy it. So if you want to have a glass of wine, you're an adult, or if you want to have a Coke and sit back with the kids. The one thing that we built in it was technology, and so. We thought of things if you want to be married on the wheel, and one car can be switched into the marriage, and everyone else can peek in on the other, on all the other pods, we call them.
Oh, wow.
It seats 20 people, so you can have 20 people watching the ceremony go off, or if you want to talk to your friend, you come with a group, a school, a college, a family group, whatever. You're able to speak to the other pods via these screens.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. And one thing I'll point out, you put a lot of thought, or your group put a lot of thought into this, because you even included you made it handicap accessible. And for me, that's a big thing, because I'm a big supporter of the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, and stuff like that is very important, and I'm happy to hear that.
Well, and you'll find it all in everything that I do. We think the same way you do also. not everybody has the ability of walking or talking or seeing, and so we try to cater to those people as best we know how.
Well, I think that's fantastic. I think that's a big kudos to you on that one. And I'm sure that project, when it does come out, is going to be amazing. I mean, if they can put a roller coaster on top of a building, the Stratosphere, which I know a lot about that because when they raise capital for that, I help do that. But if they can do something like that in Vegas, I mean, a Ferris wheel or the wheel that it's not even a wheel, it's an experience. So it's an experience.
It is. We call it an observation wheel. It's
Observation
600 feet. The London Eye is 450 feet. Of course, you have to stand in it. So I didn't want to give the feel, the company didn't want to give the feel of, hurdling cattle to go around and take a view. You want to sit back, relax, and you might want to stay on the thing for an hour and do 2 rides. But it surely is going to be an experience and something you can relax and enjoy.
That's pretty cool. I like that idea, and when you do launch that, I want to definitely go there and experience that because I'm sure that's going to be something that everyone is going to want to experience. Now we're going to get into the meat of the show. Your latest venture at DiMora Motor Car. Tell us about the Natalia.
The Natalia, I set out to do the Natalia, learning through all these years and all the experiences that I had. I wanted to try to put it all into one package and move this thing forward. And I call it the new Detroit. And the reason why I call it the new Detroit is just because I've said to myself, I want to take a car and I want to look at each aspect of the car and see if it can be redesigned or made better from bumper to bumper. And starting with the bumper, with the bolts, with the nuts. So we went through each phase along the way of this particular car. For instance, our chassis is made from lava rock. The honeycomb sandwiched using lava rock, which reduces the weight significantly, becomes biodegradable. It's about 8 times stronger than steel. Our chassis are extremely light. When you have a light chassis, you're able to, whenever you can take the weight out of a vehicle, obviously you're using less energy, whether it be gas or electric or anything, it doesn't make any difference. You'll go farther.
Right.
And so the lava rock chassis is we have just now put out the press release on how we're doing it, all the testing on it, the crash testing on it, because people look at that and say, well, how do you do that? And the neat thing about it is that it doesn't need any fixtures, so your tooling costs come down considerably, and it goes together with epoxies. And it takes about, I could build a chassis in about 20 minutes. If you're unskilled, about 40 minutes.
Or me, probably 2 hours, but that's just me.
Not actually. I think you'd be real surprised. I'm setting up with the Desert Arc here in Palm Springs. We're setting up a deal where the handicapped kids can actually put these chassis together.
Really?
So I'm really making a point of what we can do with these chassis. Now, if you can imagine Detroit, when they have to tool up for a car, a good portion of that is chassis and equipment and tooling and all that stuff. And any time that you hear Detroit speaking, they talk about in the billions to set up a plant. Well, if you can take a lot of that out for your initial capital cost expense, then all of a sudden, you're a lot. You become a lot more flexible because you're not spending that kind of money, and so you're able to take it out of the front end of the car,
right,
to the consumer. So if a car's $19,000, maybe it'll be $18,000, but still it'll be only $18,000.
right.
So and make car companies more profitable at that. So the chassis itself is pretty amazing, but the car itself, in general, there's so much to this car, and everyone says, well, when is this car going to come out? And I said, it's going to come out when it comes out, because we're creating so many different innovations, from simple stuff, from windshield wipers, working with our technology partners, to our glass. For instance, this is an all-glass top. I live in Palm Springs. It gets very, very hot here. They have glass where it becomes opaque, so you can just take out the glare entirely, but it goes completely black. Where I wanted to be able to shade it down in any shade that I wanted to, let's say 1 through 10.
Right. Kind of like what they do with the eyeglasses.
Exactly what they do with the eyeglasses, but I have control over it,
Right.
where they don't have control over it. When they go on the light, it automatically changes. I wanted to be able to dim that the way I wanted to dim it.
And have in-car control that you can make it as dark or as light as you want.
And each panel, if I wanted.
That is incredible. That's crazy. That's great.
And that has been done. We work with technology partners that step up to the plate, and this is where these technology partners come in. We call it smart glass. Research Frontiers is the one that actually helped us, and anybody that goes on my website, we have a little demonstration. It says how it works, and there's a little bar on there, and you can stroll it and see exactly how it works. And it was developed for this type of operation, but more importantly, this is now coming not only to cars, now people in buildings are calling, airplanes. I mean, you can see it starting to widespread everywhere, because how'd you like to be in an office building where it's 100 degrees coming through that glass and you can make it 50% and still be able to see out of it and knock out the rays? You would love that.
Oh, no, without a doubt. You know what's interesting is that, if you watch movies, and I always point to Hollywood when I see technology, sometimes they take a thought and throw it into a film, and they create like a faux type of situation. But if you can think it, it can be done.
There's no question in my mind, and obviously, it takes a severe amount of money and perseverance, but money's always the key factors to these. There's a lot of people in the garage, and on my website, on the very bottom of it is I say, if you have an idea and you want to get it out there, or if you think it's worthy, send it to me. I'm interested, because I believe that everything starts from somewhere, and most of these projects, believe it or not, start in the home, the car garage, the basement. The thing about it is they just don't have the capital in which to put it out there, or the marketing experience. And we have many, many people that send in to us, and I will say that, let's say 85% of them we can't use because it just doesn't fit the need. But there's 15% out there that we look at very seriously and end up becoming partners with, or working with.
Right. But that's great, because you're giving an opportunity for people to come in and say, hey, this is my thought, and it's not like you're taking it, you're actually working with them as well.
Well, we become partners, or we ask them, do you want to be partners? Do you want to be bought out of this? What's your intent? We go through the whole thing. Our idea is that it's a big world out there with the internet. Again, the internet is such a strong tool. People don't realize it. It's such an amazing tool.
Yeah.
I can have documentation, in 2 minutes in front of me and send it over to my people and review it and come back in a very, very short order of time. And, the internet really has changed everything. And that's why I keep saying technology has changed the automotive world more than most people know. And, people are jumping on the bandwagon now because they're seeing it. As I keep preaching to everyone and telling everyone, that, eventually iPod's going to run your car. So, my vision is you have a device like an iPod, you put it in your car, and it does everything.
But we don't want Steve Jobs jumping on that idea, because he has enough already, so he doesn't need to do this. I love the guy, smart guy, but you have to give somebody else an opportunity. God.
But that's what I'm saying. Somebody that sees that vision out there, where you can throw hundreds and hundreds of different apps. I mean, and it'll plug in. And as we all know, that the telephone, the internet, the TV, it's all coming down to one conversion. I mean, we're going to be one. Our watches, you're going to be able to watch TV and talk and, email and whatever. It's happening before us today.
And it's coming. I mean, right now, even with the cable companies, I mean, years ago you had the hardline phone, you have your Verizon, whatever it is. Actually, back then, it was called something else. You had all the bells out there, and you had to plug into the wall. Now it's a cable where it goes.
I used to tell people, and I think it was probably 15 years ago, my phone bill was running about $5,500 a month just at my office. Today, it's run to nothing.
Yeah, because everything goes down. And right now, I know Time Warner, and I shouldn't mention the company, but I am. Time Warner, basically, they you can watch, you can see who's calling. You have a caller ID on your television.
I'm there. I that's what I use. And You're right. It's, again, the technology in general, will eventually be in your car. Your car, you'll get in your car. You won't even drive your car. It'll be the safest car because it'll brake, it'll stop, it'll do all that, and all this needs to be perfected. But, over the next 10 years, look what we've done in 10 years. You're going to see this happen in the automotive industry only because technology is becoming cheaper, easier to get to, plentiful, and very reliable. And if you can start putting that into a car, then all of a sudden your car prices come down. I look at all these other cars out there, electric cars and hydrogen cars and all that, and I'm very conscientious to our Earth and our planet and say, well, what do we do with these batteries? What happens when these batteries explode? We've seen computers that start on fire, and we've seen all kinds of crazy things. And, are we creating a new problem when we haven't solved the old problem? So lots to look at, though.
Yeah, but you're always thinking about what you can do, how this can work with that, and so on and so forth. And basically, America was built on innovation. America was built on entrepreneurship. America was built on people, trying to build something better. And that's exactly what you're doing. I mean, you're like the epitome of that. And people, that are listening to the show, you want an example. Here you go.
Yeah, we ask people for help, and the reason why we do that is that we believe that there's a lot of innovation out there that it's on the shelf. That's fantastic, and we know it's out there. We see it. We see movies on stuff, that have been out there, and they just haven't been able to go out there. So here's a website, not only that you can learn about how a car is built, because we're showing how the whole process is done the best that we know how. But at the same time, you can come in and give us some advice. And if you have something interesting, give it to us. Let's take a look and see. I believe what you just said is absolutely correct. The U.S. is the leader, innovator around the world. Everybody's copied everything that we've done. They might be manufacturing it out there, but it was created right here in the U.S.
Yep.
And as you can see, everybody that I'm using is a U.S. operated company.
I think that's great. No, I think that's great. I just want to add something in there because, just because you brought it up. Yeah, this is how America was built. We were a manufacturing nation, and something happened, and we became a servicing nation. And I'm like, for someone like yourself, doing this, okay, and manufacturing here in the United States and developing all this innovation, I think that's fantastic. Stuff like that is what's going to help to keep America great. And I'm going to let you continue your thought. I just wanted to throw that in there before I forgot.
No, again, I'm a firm believer in that. I've gone to, in fact, we've looked at all 50 states and said, who's doing what in what state and how can they contribute to our car even. And so this car has become, the Natalia itself is being developed in each state virtually. We've picked a lot of states. A lot of it's done in Detroit because of the talent and technology there. When you hear all this stuff, Detroit's falling apart and all that. Let me tell you, the people haven't fallen apart. They're brilliant people. I say to the heads of these, you have expert people there. Listen to them instead of telling them. Listen to them.
it goes back to what you said earlier on, that they're more worried about the bottom line and the shareholder than they are about producing a great product and helping to build this country.
Well, if we had passionate people running car companies, again, we would build product. I mean, we were so proud of the Corvettes and Chevys and Fords and the T-Birds and I mean, our cars were different and no one copied each other, and they. I mean, it was really amazing stuff. What you've seen in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and because those guys were passionate. When you look at the people that were running the car companies, they were passionate. They were visionaries. They had their own ideas of how they wanted to do that. And if I had any advice for them, put passionate people in the car business back in it. Don't try to take business people and move them in there that really don't understand that business. They might understand business in general, and you can go to Business School 101 and understand how 1 + 1 is equal 2, but you're not going to understand the car and design and features and thinking,
Right. No, I understand that. And one thing I'm going to say is that this show is going to go a little longer than normal. Just I want to let our listeners know, because this is very interesting, because I have some questions for you since you are in the auto industry, and I want to get your view on. But I definitely want to talk about the Italian, exactly what we're talking about right now, but later on I want to touch on certain topics and to get your input, because I'm curious on what your view is of certain things.
Sure. Other features to the Italian is that we have a handicap chair in this thing, and the front seat will come up and do like a 90 degree and be able to put you out on the so you can stand up on the street, which is kind of neat.
Wait a second. You're saying that the actual seat will come out, lift up, they can go on it, come down, and go back in the car?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
again, you yourself might not be handicapped, but you might have a passenger that would never be able to enjoy a car or try to get in and out of this particular car, and it's there. You could do it.
But that's in a luxury automobile. I'm just going to, say something personal as far as me. My brother was handicapped, and I used to have a Corvette, and he wanted to ride in it so badly that I can only bring him in the car one time because there's such a struggle to get him in there and get him out.
Sure.
So I commend you on that, because I think that is incredible. So I just wanted to touch on that, just a personal thing. Sometimes I get personal on the show, but it's just, I mean, this conversation that we're having right now about this is ultra interesting to me. So I'll let you continue.
Yeah, the front of the car. All the listeners out there that've been driving cars, and they know when they park the car, people go, "What kind of car is that?" and whatnot. So what we did is we built inside the headlights some screens. We run a DVD inside, and when I walk away from the car, not to be rude to anybody, you can just go to the front of the car, and the car will talk about itself, which is kind of a nice little thing. And then, of course, if you're somewhere where you can park against the wall, there's a projector built in one of the lights, and I can project onto the wall, so it will explain what the car is all about.
That is cool.
Yeah. The going sort of back to the chassis a little bit, because we're pretty proud of our D-Tech chassis. It's an all-new chassis, obviously, and our chassis only weighs 457 pounds. And for those listeners out there, your listeners, this car is 250 inches long, about 20 feet. And this is a big car. This is a four-door. This is a big car. I mean, this is a very large car, and the chassis only weighs 457 pounds. And
what's your typical chassis that, let's say on a big sedan, a big Mercedes or a big sedan from one of the U.S. automakers, what's the typical weight on those chassis?
On a comparable chassis of this size, right around 2,000 pounds.
So you're at about less than 25% of a typical chassis for a car of that size.
Yeah, this car in general overall is going to weigh right around 3,900 pounds versus around 8,000 pounds. That's a comparable car of this size out there today.
and it reduces the fuel consumption, gives you more power, and it allows you to do a lot of other things. That's interesting.
Sure. So when you take out the weight, now you can imagine a D-Tech chassis, let's say in a smaller compact car. Obviously I have more cars on the drawing board, and Natalia won't be the only car out there. And by the way, the Natalia name came about by I name all my cars after women.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone asks, so the Natalia is obviously the first car being named after my mother, being a good Italian boy.
I kind of figured that, but that's good. That's good.
And the SLS means sports luxury sedan, and the two, when you see a number by the side of my car, you know how much it cost. $2 million, 2.3, 3.1. You'll know how much it costs. So it just simplifies things, and you'll never forget it.
Right. No, that's pretty interesting. So it reduces the question. Just point your finger and walk away.
And there you go.
What'd you pay for it? Look, there. Goodbye. But these cars you have, this is a V16, right?
This is a V16. It's 1,200 horsepower, and everyone says, "Why 1,200 horsepower?" And I said, "Because I can."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the engine that we're doing is an engine that could be used in the marine world for boats and other applications, airplanes. So this engine was not only designed for the car, it was designed for other applications.
Right.
But at the same time, that even though it is a V16, you're only using on demand what you're using. So if you're in the city and driving around, you're typically only using 8 cylinders. When you put your foot to the metal, then if you want to step it up to all 16 cylinders and go your 270 miles an hour, you're able to do that.
Right, and still you have better gas mileage than you would a car that has a V8.
Well, and that's the thing, because you're taking the weight out, and we're conscientious to that. We're working on new fuel injection systems constantly, all the time, different ways to enhance, even looking at methods of heating up the fuel better, so you're burning better fuel. This is a constant, ongoing battle with combustion engines, and we're no different. This is our own engine. A lot of people say, "Well, what 16 is that?" This is a ground-up engine, and it's sand-casted, which in itself is pretty amazing. And soon we'll have up some video on the actual building of the car on my website, so you can actually see how this process is done of sand casting, and it's pretty amazing. And by the way, again, all this is done in the U.S.
Right.
All this equipment, all this machinery, and all the help that I'm getting from what we call technology partners, this is all U.S. technology partners stepping up, saying, "Hey, we believe in what you're doing, and we have cutting edge that we think that would fit with you, and or help us develop it with you."
No, that's great, because this is what you're doing. You're actually setting things up to employ in the U.S., create jobs and create factories and help grow business. Because when you create a factory to produce a car like this, you have jobs, you have what's going on outside, you have businesses that pop up and things. You create a change in an area if you build your factory in a particular area.
Yeah, and I've always been a firm believer that little business is where our economy grows, not with big business.
Right.
It's all these small businesses that pop up. They can employ 25 to 100 people.
Yep.
And so the innovation along with the lava rock, people are saying, "Well, why lava rock?" First of all, there's plenty of it.
I was afraid to ask that, but
yeah. When you're using carbon fiber, it's very hard to work with as far as painting it. You have to do special primers and all that neat stuff. And now in the way our paint booths today, especially in California and spreading across the country, where we can only use water-based, we're very conscientious to all that stuff too. So what happens is that the lava rock, there's no pre-prep to it. It's ready to go. It actually can go right to primer and paint. Where on other materials, you actually have to seal it, primer it, seal it, sometimes again, fill the holes, and then go ahead and paint it. And so that's another little unique feature of it. And of course, that brings you to the paint of the car. We have options on our car where our car color, again, I live in Palm Springs where it's hot. I've always wanted my car to be white. I love white cars, but I love black cars at the same time. So we've got involved with a company that can actually has developed the paint that during the day in the heat, my car is white. In the evening, it could be black or blue depending on the base that we put down.
You're kidding me, right?
No.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so now you have your glass that you can tint down, and you can keep the rays out plus the heat. Now, we have this feature, and then of course our third feature is that we have cool leather that never gets hot, which you don't have to be in Palm Springs, to know that.
And it gets hot in Palm Springs. For our listeners, it gets hot over there because I've been there, and I think it was 112 one day, and I didn't feel it until I put my foot on the cement. That wasn't a good thing. Wasn't smart on my part.
Anywhere where there's heat, right?
Yeah.
If you're driving and you can see where this will go. This will go on motorcycle seats eventually.
Sure.
This will go on hot rod cars, convertibles. How many times you leave your convertible even when you're in New York, it gets hot.
Yeah.
So now you can actually jump in the car.
Well, the sun's beating on it. It's just, you can be 60 degrees. If the sun is beating on your car, your leather's going to get hot regardless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that portion of it is also kind of cool, kind of neat. And again, it's cool leather, and all that's found on my website. The manufacturers of it, and we put them out there because we think that this is pretty incredible stuff, and it's not much more money than any other leather would be out there.
Well, that's interesting. But then now the body, the construction of the car, the body is you're using aerospace technology, right?
We are, and some of the body we're using the lava rock for our body components, along with aluminum, which is similar to in some terms, it's a spray-on aluminum, and then our lava rock goes behind that, and it seals itself. And so you can actually have a car that feels like aluminum, touches like aluminum. The layer of it is aluminum, but it's strong as carbon fiber or any other very strong material out there.
Wow. And if someone was to buy this car, one luxury that I'm looking at what you have right now, I know one of the luxuries that I find interesting is that you have four-wheel steering.
Yes, four-wheel steering, four-wheel drive, 16-speed transmission, which is our own transmission. Obviously, you don't need 16 speeds, but
I need to go reverse and drive and park and neutral. That's all I need. Our
first gear is from 0 to 60 in first gear, so that kind of tells you the power. And the concept of the car for me, too, is that I wanted to get in a car that sort of felt like a sports car and really enjoyable, if you know what I'm saying. If you've ever been behind the wheel of a Ferrari or a luxury fast car, you love that feel. It's just a feeling that's undescribable. Yeah. But at the same time, when I wanted to be pampered to be in the back of the car, I wanted to have all the amenities and be pampered.
Right.
So you have your screens, your faxes, your computers, everything known to man will be in the back of this particular car, to include all the reclining seats and all the, feature comforts that are pretty amazing. And of course we're developing all this as we go.
No, but I think it's fantastic, and you have so many things in there. I mean, even to the lighting in the car. Okay, you didn't skip a beat with anything.
No, the lighting's very interested in there. We brought a light expert in, which he's an incredible man and very, very cutting edge, and really wanted to think through the lighting of this car. What I call mood lighting. And also when you're driving along the wheel can tell you your heart rate, feel if you're raged a little bit. It will change the color of the dashboard to a particular blue that we know that is a calming blue. So we've done our color studies. A lot of thought has been put into it, and unique features. There's so many features. It's we could probably sit here for days.
Oh no, without a doubt. One thing I found interesting just a few months ago, I got in my car and I said, okay, I had my laptop and I wanted to check something. You know, obviously I pulled over, but then my battery was dying in the car. I mean not in the car, on the laptop, and I said, I can't even charge it because I didn't bring the outlet to do it. So I was like, it was horrible. I said, all right, I need this information. I can't charge the laptop, and I said it would be great to have an outlet in this car, so I can plug in.
Of course, we have an outlet in the car. We also have a 115 or 230 converter in the car. How many times you've got in the car and you just want to plug something in,
yeah,
you know, from your house, and you can't do that. That's built into this car. We have a Trinko charge that's actually built into the car. How many times have cars been sitting around if you're not driving it and the battery goes dead? So we have not only a cutoff valve, shut-off valve, but we have a Trinko charge that is actually built in. You pull it out from the car itself and plugs into the wall, so you don't have to go buy that accessory and have it hanging around.
That's great. I love that idea. See, people, you know, they'll see the Natalia, they say, wow, well, it's $2 million, but it's $2 million, but look at everything that's involved here. You have every amenity in this car.
It is. I tell people it's truly the real 007 car.
Yeah, I mean, even for your heat controlled cup holders, and everything else, it's amazing.
You know, that's a perfect example. When I was doing the heated cup hold, you know, the hot and cold cup holders, when I first started that was one of the first things that we did 3.5 years ago. You didn't find that in cars. In today's world, you find it everywhere. And you'll be amazed how many engineers are on my website because I'm giving it all away. And I want to.
But you're helping the auto industry, and I think that's fantastic. And one thing, and I'll touch on this, which I found funny, because you have like was it the Bentley? You know, you buy a car like that, yeah, it's going to cost you a few $100,000 to go get a car like that. You have all this stuff involved there. They have their own umbrella, this and that. But all the stuff that's in that car is nowhere near what you have. Nowhere near at all. But one little thing you have for the women. Why don't you tell our listeners what you have for the women in this car?
Well, a little touch to separate everyone else from this car from everyone else, especially for the women. You know, women need to be part of it. Typically, you know, guys are always involved in cars, and although more and more women are definitely coming on board, right?
Yeah.
We built we designed a special purse that just goes with this car for the women. It's a $12,000 purse, and it's given to the women. And the only way that you can get one of these purses is to own an Natalia. So it's just kind of a little special feature and a thank you from us to them, and to include the women inside, you know, with it. You know,
so they can't go to a store and go to it's not like buying a Chanel bag or something. You buy the car, you have the purse. You can't buy this somewhere else.
Can't buy it anywhere else. It just comes with the car.
So you see somebody walking around with this purse, you know they have a $2 million car, and that's all that's said about that.
That's all you can say about that.
Yeah, I know. I think we covered everything with the Natalia. It's awesome. I'm like, there's nothing I can ask about it. I want to get in the car. That's what I want to do, you know. So it sounds fantastic. You know, I know that when you do finish everything that you're doing with it, this is going to be on the cover of every auto magazine from here to Timbuktu. And if they don't do that, it's crazy, because you are go ahead. I'll let you say what you have to say.
Well, you know, we're getting a lot of people writing about it because now they're starting to understand the program, at first they didn't get what I was doing, and merging technology with automobiles, that makes sense, and today it really makes sense. So it's finally catching up to it, and soon the car will be out. We look forward to the car to being out over the next 18, 24 months. We have cars that are already pre-sold, people waiting for them. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I might add is a lot of our safety features in this car. We've really gone out of our way for safety in this car. Mm-hmm. Fuel systems. We have a product called Tank Tough. We call it Tank Tough, where you can actually penetrate this and it self-heals itself. For instance, if somebody decided to shoot at your car, which God forbid that never happened, or mm-hmm. something penetrated it, it would self-heal itself and wouldn't explode. Those kind of features for safety are really important for a car like this.
It's like a Wolverine car.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep making reference to to those movies, but and I'm going to say this again for our listeners. This is the real life Tony Stark. What you're doing is amazing, and then the thing is too, which I didn't know before I spoke to you, and I'm in awe just going into everything. Just so you know, but. You're not just going out there and saying, well, I want to build a $2 million car and I'm puffing out my chest. This is what I'm doing. No, you're not doing that at all. What you're doing is actually building something that is amazing. And you're actually, you have technology that is associated with this, and you're actually going out there and giving that out to the world.
Well, we're building a company, a really rock solid foundation on a company, and what we're looking at doing is expanding that down the road. DiMora Motor Car will grow and will be here, and it's not just it's for all technologies mm-hmm. Related to automotive, and as you can see, it's spreading out to different aspects of buildings and different things, which we're happy about, but our concentration is in the car world, and hopefully we're building the new Detroit, mm-hmm. The start of what we think would be the new way of building cars.
Well, you know what I wish General Motors, if you even Ford, Chrysler, all these automakers, and especially companies in the United States, that are building here. The one picture that I see with an automaker, and I see you doing it as well, when Henry Ford stood by his Model T with a big smile on his face and took that picture, that's pride in what you're doing. And that's what, there's like a disconnect in the auto industry, because it's all corporate, and there's a lack of pride in producing a great product here in the United States, and that's what you have. You have that pride, and that's fantastic. Now I'm going to ask you your opinion on two things, if you don't mind. First, with the state of the automakers, like General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, all these car makers, do you think that the state that they're in, that they could have avoided all the issues that they have that were created and where they're at today?
Well, I don't have the crystal ball, but I do have an opinion on that, and I think that my opinion would be is that it's clear to me, and it's probably clear to everyone else, that that yes, it could have been avoided. I think everyone's, it's hard to say, as you can see, I'm hesitant about it because, again, I didn't have the crystal ball, but to me it was pretty clear that we weren't building the product that we should have been doing, and in the innovation, in my opinion, we got a little lazy on our innovations, and so we lacked a little bit, and therefore we hurt. In other words, we stood to be old school and kept to be old school, and that hurt us today and in the future. No one's seen the crash coming, or a lot of people did, but would it affect the cars the way it did, and especially the big three? when you get that big, sometimes you think that you can't be knocked down, and here you are, all three of them sitting there asking for money.
Mm-hmm.
To me, out of the three of them, I think that it was clear to me that if you're losing that much money on a continuous basis, that something clearly was not correct or wrong, and someone should have stepped up to the plate and said something, whether it's been the shareholders, the people. I know that people in general were complaining about the quality of cars,
Mm-hmm.
as far as, when they took it off the lot and, that kind of thing. And so, to answer your question, no question that it was definitely coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been changed, in my opinion.
They could have went down a different road. It could have been a different situation. And I'll add on to that, because I know it's hard for you to get deep into it. I mean, you do have your opinion, but I don't want to put you on the spot with putting yourself out there so much that I don't want to do that to you. But I have to say something here. Out of the three companies that were out there, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, the one company that realized their shortcomings, and I was impressed, was Ford.
I have to agree. Ford jumped in. They really started. They were the first in the innovation that caught on. That said, hey, when they partnered up with Microsoft and jumped in on that, and Ford, God bless them, they're the only ones not borrowing money today, mm-hmm. And I think they're going to go a long way. And what they did is stay to their core business. And I think the other businesses kind of got away from their core business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ford is even shrinking down more to stay in their core business.
But that's the way you need. That's what you need to do when you're in this economic environment. With General Motors, they had GM Capital, they had the company, they had this, they had that, they had the other part of the company, which was it Delphi or Delphi? They were selling the parts, all this stuff. So a lot of stuff. Okay, right now today, as we speak, the government owns a piece of them. The unions own a piece of them. I see a conflict of interest, and I don't think that the innovation through those companies are going to be what it used to be. I think Ford is going to be there. I think you're going to be there, because what you're producing right now is you're bringing innovation to the table, and you're not saying, well, we came out with a heated windshield wiper, and I'm not telling anybody. I'm going to keep this here in my vault until I'm ready.
Yeah.
You're not doing that. You're letting it out there because you want America to continue to be great in the arena of manufacturing, and again, I commend you on that. Now, talking about America and the auto industry, my second question is, what do you think about the U.S. allowing, I think it's in 2010 or something, allowing China to sell their cars here?
Well, that's a really good question, and I don't, America is one of those countries that allows everyone to come into the country, pretty much, and all businesses, and I don't have a problem with it to the point where, and America wouldn't have a problem with this. We built a good product and competed against them. So, in a sense, they're bringing competition to us that's making us step up to the plate and be better and be smarter about what we do. On the other hand, we hate to say taking business away from any of our dealers and people here in the U.S. Now, if those China companies are building, like a lot of companies, are building factories here and leaving the money in the U.S., that's one thing. I hear about factories that are here in the country and they're promoting that they're here in the country and all that neat stuff, but is the money staying here?
Right.
Or is it being shipped back to their country? So, there's good and there's bad to it. And the bad thing I would probably have to say is that China for a long time had built questionable product. Today they've really stepped up to the plate, brought in Americans and all types of different people, and they're building really good quality. If they want to, they can build very good quality merchandise. And they can do it a lot cheaper than we can, obviously, because of our labor rate, cost, and structure of this country. So they do have a real big advantage. Now, do the dealers, and on the other hand, the dealers that have just got cremated by the three here, they need something to sell. I mean, if you looked at how many dealers got knocked out of business, not to their choice,
right,
and they still have all this property and everything, and they're good business people, they need something to sell.
Without a doubt.
I mean, it is filling a gap there too. So, I have this real mixed emotion about it. And again, if we build better product than anybody, guess what? We're going to sell more than anybody, and who cares who comes in?
No, exactly. And maybe this will be that gun to the head that says, hey, you need to step up and do something here. You need to step up and make better vehicles, less expensive vehicles, vehicles that consumers are going to want to buy, not a vehicle that consumers are going to look at and say, well, I'd rather go for something that's cheaper and it's made better, so we won't buy your car.
There's a lot more competition out there, as you know, Korea, China, Honda. I mean, even Honda in its day, it was known for little cars and no one was touching them. And Honda's now having the problem that everyone else is, into their market space. Yeah. So it's a changing world out there. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the next couple years go. But there's no question that America is number one, always will be number one if they just stay focused on what their primary businesses and not worry about the rest of the world.
Right.
And build really good quality product that people want. And you hit it right on the head. It's what people, consumers want, not what we want to give to them. It's what they want.
Right.
So, like, we're taking out big trucks now. We're taking out all that. Now, that's good for a while, but people have horses and cars and trailer and moving things, and let's face it, they're not going to drive around a little truck and try to tow it around. It's unsafe to start off with.
Right.
So, that's a mixed bag for me. It goes back and forth. But
there's room for change, and that
there is room, and those that change will be on top.
Right, but you have to be innovators in the business, and again, you're not asking me to do this. I'm saying this, that if automakers would just take a page out of your book, and you didn't write a book, but I'm saying out of what you do, and look at your basic blueprint for running a company. I don't care whether it's a car company. I don't care what it is. Just a blueprint for running a company. You will be successful. I mean, bottom line, because you've been successful in everything you've done. And obviously you're doing something right. And you're creating innovation for this country, and that's something that we need. And that's about it. Is there anything that you wanted to go over, Alfred, about the Natalia, or anything else that you have going on?
Well, yeah, I do have one thing going on, is that we're doing, I'm getting a star here in Palm Springs on the 15th of November. They're actually giving me a star here of the Walk of Stars.
Nice.
And on that same day, Dennis Lambert is going to be involved. He's getting a star, too. It's the first time they've ever given a star to two people. And the day before, we're doing a charity concert that's going to Desert Arc here locally for the disabled kids. It's going to be a great concert. Dennis Lambert is a great songwriter, and he's written songs like Pink Cadillac, and there's so many of them. He's on the charts. Natalie Cole will be there. The Commodores are going to be there. It's going to be a fantastic concert. It's being over at the Caliente, LA Caliente Casino, and all the proceeds at the door are going directly to the handicapped kids, and I'm proud to be part of that and helping.
Wow.
Helping that, and Ernest Boardnine will be speaking on my behalf, and Bo Hopkins will be speaking on my behalf from American Graffiti.
Oh, wow.
Which is one of the reasons why I actually got into this business. I don't know if those people know American Graffiti, but I must have watched it
Yeah.
50 times, and that was the one that inspired me the most to go out and say, go do it, you know.
That was a fantastic movie, by the way. You know, I can watch that over and over again still today.
It wasn't. In fact, Bo was bringing his Merc down. You know, as the Pharaoh, he's bringing it down to the Star dedication. So
Great.
anybody's welcome to come to that concert. The tickets are being sold there at the Ali Caliente, or they can go on my website and learn more about it here in a couple days.
And then there'll be a
we'd
link.
love to have them out there. It'd be very entertaining. There's about 14 different bands out there, which and bless all those guys for helping out. You know.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Now they can go to your website, and there'll be a link that they can actually go buy the tickets online and things of that nature.
There'll be a link that will direct them to that next week when the tickets go on sale. One of Dennis's favorite songs, and the song that he actually wrote, was "We Built This City," which is very appropriate for this whole conversation.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. See, and it's funny when I just think that we're done with you. We're not done with you because there's so many components to you that I just find amazing. I just find amazing. But as you said, we can talk, and I even told you before we even started the show that you and I can probably talk for days about everything, about a lot of topics and a lot of things that you've accomplished and just things in general. And I think you're amazing. You know, Alfred, I have to say that you are an inspiration to anyone that thinks that they can't follow their childhood dreams or their dreams in general. You're a visionary, you're driven, and you are all that America is about. And that's being a true entrepreneur to the core, from technology, building an organization, building products, manufacturing, the whole 9 yards. And I say this from the heart. I am truly in awe of you as a person and everything. Not the things that you've done, but you as a person. And go ahead.
I thank you for those kind words, and I hope your listeners are out there listening and saying, hey, you know, let's go make a difference. Everyone can make a difference. You know, anybody in Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, or therefore any car company that owns stock, put your voice out to them. Let them know.
Yeah, they have.
What
they have
their
to.
feeling is. You know.
Well, the same way that
no reason a stock should be $1. It should be $25. You know.
I agree with that. But you know, you need activists involved in the company. You know, in order to invoke change in anything. With you run your company, but you also want to hear from the people. So if you're doing that, why can't they?
You know, we not only hear from the people, everyone that writes into us, everyone gets written back to. Now, whether it's from me or not is a different thing. I do try to read as much as possible and respond back to as many people as I personally can. The more vague questions, we have people in-house that do take care of that. Mm-hmm. Our website, by the way, is www.dimora.motorcar.com. That's DIMORA motor, MOTOR, car, CAR.com.
Right, and
we'd love to have you on there and take a look. Again, we're adding on as we build this car more and more and more. So over the next 18 months, you'll find a lot of different innovations on how to get to them.
Well, I think that the Natalia SLS2 will get its fair share of notoriety and praise, probably more so than the Cline or the Scepter has. I think that what you're doing right now with innovation is going to put that over the top. Alfred, I want to thank you so much for being on the UCW radio show. This has been an extreme honor. You've taken your Saturday to where you could have been relaxing with your wife, and instead of being on the phone with me. You know, but one thing I would be honored if you would join us again in the near future to get updates on what's going on with the Natalia and with the DiMora Motor Car, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, love to do it.
Excellent, excellent. To our listeners, that was Alfred DiMora. He's a visionary in every way possible. No one can knock that down. I urge any of our listeners that are auto enthusiasts to visit the DiMora Motorcar website at www.DiMoraMotorcar.com. Find out more about the Natalia. Find out more about what Alfred has done and what he is doing. Find out more about him, because this is the epitome of the American dream right here. And if you want to be inspired, go to DiMoraMotorcar.com. Find out more about him. Thanks for listening to the UCW Radio Show.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
What is your major malfunction?
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Ladies and gentlemen, my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you.